Saintess summons skeletons. By Morn. Chapter 81, Shift Optics. Sofia and Alith cautiously advanced through the main hall. This was a dungeon. So there had to be something in there. Something hostile. And since everything was still intact, it probably wasn't a Phagiad, so their best bet was the owner. Though it was dubious how anyone could be alive for so long. Maybe the owner is a skeleton. Or will become one. That being said, they hoped that it wasn't actually it. Because why would a potential owner of this place not return to the real world if they had access to a keyring? So either they guessed wrong, or the potential owner had no interest in leaving, or worse yet, they had no way to leave. Sofia and Alith had already discussed what they would try next if there was no way to leave to be found in there. They would break the one ring they had to study it and what's inside. Like this they could hopefully manage to replicate it. But they knew nothing about the making of magic items, so that was a huge gamble and their last resort option. Of course they had tried obvious stuff like pumping the ring full of mana from the very start, but that did nothing to restore its uses. Now that they were inside, observing the lavishly decorated hall, its tapestries, its wooden cabinets, its non-blue stone sculptures. This felt extremely human. So far the city had been empty of all but bare walls and ceilings. The palace did look normal from the outside, but all curtains were closed, so it had been impossible to see inside before entering. Now that they were there, it was very obvious that this had been a human city. I don't know if that's reassuring or a disappointment. At least if we're stuck here we can actually use the stuff in the castle. The paintings were all vague scenery of forests and plains, in hard unmixed colors. This kind of art style only survived in the old records of the church as far as Sofia knew. And information about this was exactly the kind of useless educational books they would give the orphanages, when it wasn't glorious tales of paladins and dragons. I'm no historian, but these paintings have to be at least 1,000 years old. If not more. Honestly, Aurelia's were better. So this was a human city. But why is it in this void? And why full of Phagiad? They kept sneaking through the castle like robbers, though they didn't actually touch anything. Sofia was firing identify left and right, but the results were middling. Some stuff here was worth good money, but what use would that be of now? Behind the seat of honor were 2 doors, they entered the left one. Corridor. A corridor leading to the servants' quarters and the kitchens, a familiar layout. No point in exploring this way. She gave a sign for Alith to turn back. The right door led to yet another corridor, this one however deserved all kinds of interesting rooms. But they didn't want to bother with anything that didn't look like a way out, they kept their eyes peeled for another keyring, but didn't go through everything. They would comb the place when they were sure it was safe. Until then, they left after a glance in each room. Climbing the first set of stairs they found. The important stuff had to be up there on the higher floors. Such had always been the hubris of man. The second floor was still relatively harmless, more random rooms, though these felt more assorted to each other, more private. Probably where the family who lived there actually spend their days. Unlike the first floor that was for servants and guests. It was interesting that they could still see clearly despite the closed heavy curtains everywhere, since the lighting was still the same otherworldly uniform thing it was outside. But they did find candlesticks and wall-mounted light rocks, though everything was off. That would confirm this place wasn't always a part of the void. They hoped to find something akin to a treasury there, but not luck. The most interesting thing they stumbled upon was a family portrait painting. Though the art style was dated, it looked like a happy family of 5. With the father being a scrawny man in violet robes, 3 kids with rather delicate features, and the mother. An elf? This can't be, right? No, no. I'm positive the elf that had the ring was male. One of the kids? A descendant? Ah, whatever. Perith was a chicken now, anyway. The elf skeleton long lost to the depths of the sea. It was weird the state this place was in. It was clean and in perfect condition. No dust, no disrepair, no mess anywhere. But it was all empty of life. As if someone cleaned the whole thing up then disappeared. There were no traces of it being recently lived in. The tension they had felt was slowly dissipating. The palace lacked any kind of protection or traps beyond the outside shield. No one was here to berate them for entering their sacred place or anything like that. Besides, the previous occupants were humans. They had even found books written in the common language. Though they had no time to read them. They entered the third floor. This was nothing like anything they had seen before. Every room was dedicated to science, and labeled as such with a plaque above the door. Alchemy, mineralogy, herbology, entomology, each room its own subject, displays, and equipment. It was harmless at the start, but the deeper they progressed through the maze of connected science rooms the weirder it got. Optics. Power cores. Sinkholes. Realms. Shield matrices. Prosthesis. Grafting. Fusions. The last two rooms were particularly disgusting. Mangled body parts floated in tubes. Biological turned mechanical. Plants reinvented in the flesh. It was hard to even describe. They didn't linger in there. The last room was the weirdest of all, an unlabeled empty square room. Smaller than the previous ones, windowless. The door closed by itself behind them. Ding, the room shook. The door wasn't exactly a full door, more like a metal grid. Alith could have teleported out of there with Lady Double, but Sofia would be stuck inside. She tried to cut down the door, but the walls sank behind the door. There was no more exit. Sofia summoned her weapon. Class skill level up point *1 has been used. Spine of the Black Sun reached level 100. Perith stood in front of the group. Sanctified grounds and flying shields of light up and ready. A new exit slowly revealed itself from the top of the wall, aligning itself with the door. Ding! The door reopened by itself. Beyond was a simple room with a tiny round table on which was a single teacup, a chair, and a coat hanger near the only door. There were windows of both the left and right, though the curtains were closed, like every other through the whole castle. No traps? It seemed that they had panicked for nothing. The previous room had been some kind of indoor mountain lift. That was the first time Sofia had seen something like this. The cup on the table was empty, but you could see some remnants of a dark drink at the bottom. There was a purple coat on the hanger and a pair of purple woolen slippers beneath it. Sofia and Alith exchanged head and hand signs. Alith approached the door, she would open it and Perith would go in. Click! A loud noise came from a brown box that had been hidden under the table. Then it started speaking in a monotone, grating and crackling voice. Stop. Do not open *. That was it, they were on maximum alert again. Be calm. Door protects *. Can they see us? Who? The human? After all this time? She glanced at the hung-up purple robe again. This was a real dungeon after all. There had to be a boss. No danger. Door closed *. Shield matrix. Same outside *. You will locked inside. Alright. It's maybe really the human from the painting. Let's try to communicate. Could still be a trap too. But what are our options even? Alith gestured that Sofia should do the talking. Who are you? Hero. Built Zangdar. Past *. Oh. Probably explains all the weird shit in the science rooms. Heroes. What year is now? That's what he's curious about? 3210. So long. Finally Can he only talk in strings of 4 words? Glad you reached me. Stuck far too long. Lost. Aliens took over Aliens? Everyone died. Eaten alive Ah, this. Well. I am not surprised. Sorry, you cannot leave. Asterisk now. Please. Kill me asterisk. Chapter 82, Kill Now. Can we ask you some questions? Out of all the things I expected, I didn't think about helping someone kill themselves. I don't really get why he can't do it, or what's beyond the door. Asterisk consciousness suppressed. 12 words asterisk. I see. I'll ask groups of 4 questions then, please answer by yes or no, or in 1 word per question. There was no answer. I guess he is saving the word count. She discussed what to ask with Alith, who thought Sofia's questions were good enough. Sofia cleared her throat. All right, here are the first questions. Is there a way here for us to return to the normal world? Can we get it without killing you? Is it behind this door? Will we be able to understand it without you? Asterisk yes. No. Inside. Ring asterisk. He could be lying. But let's hope he isn't. We don't have much of a choice anyway. If there's really another ring in there, we're out. Then the next topic. What is the danger behind this door? Is it more dangerous than the phageid larvae outside? What is the thing we should be the most wary about? What is its weak point if it has one? Asterisk me different. Eyes. Brain asterisk. He is the danger? Sofia couldn't help but recall the experiments in the last room. I have a feeling I understand what's going on. Only 4 words left. Why'd he waste so much at the beginning if he was so limited? It's probably best to finish with an open-ended question. Anything else we should absolutely know? And if not? Any last words? Asterisk grateful. Storage password. Iriadel asterisk. Iriadel? Would that be the elf wife, or the one daughter? Alright. Discussing their next steps, the group decided to explore the whole castle in detail before going in there to kill whatever the hero had become. Yet this plan failed before it could even start. The thing the supposed hero had said earlier was sorry, you cannot leave. That had made Sofia panic a bit, but the thing's next answers had calmed her. It assured them there was a way to leave this city. So why had he said that? It turned out it was because they couldn't leave the room. The small room was completely enveloped in the same kind of mana shield that was outside. Alith tried to hit every wall with her weapons only to watch the mithril rebound out of the wall after only leaving a tiny dent. The floor and ceiling were the same, they couldn't even get back into the weird automatic lift. The only way left was the door leading to some unknown danger that was apparently this place's previous owner. Wouldn't you be almost invincible if you could walk around with a shield like that around you? Wouldn't even have to worry about getting summoned by the church or anyone else. Well, I guess it isn't that easy, after all the shield outside required many of those power core things. Hey Alith, do you think I can get an award for being the person who gets locked up the most often? Behold, we're now in a prison inside a prison. At this rate should I tie my hands behind my back too, so I can add another layer? You're joking, but that could be a requirement for one of those specialized skills, right? I already got mine. Who said you can't get more? I know I'll be pushing hard to get one next trial, you should do the same. Whatever. Do we get in there? I probably still can't use Angel's Bolt since it'll be a closed space. Paratha's still a chicken. I need to be past the mana barrier before I can use Graveyard of the Righteous. We don't have much choice. Do we open the door and rush in or try to scout before? I cast Graveyard of the Righteous, it will take 8 seconds, right before it goes off you open the door and use Lady Double and send the fake running inside. That'll draw the attention of whatever enemy is in there. We see what we can do after that. Oh, and don't use the shriek if you don't need to, it's likely I won't be able to heal you. Aight. You could also charge up a bolt and throw it in after I open the door. What if it doesn't go through the barrier? I'll die in the explosion. And if it goes off inside, it could destroy the ring we need to get back. Also there's still the Phageids outside, can't be sure what will happen when we kill the guy. If the barrier goes down we'll need to get away real fast, better not to attract their attention with a big boom if we can avoid it, she explained. Alith answered with a nod. She stood near the door, ready to open it when it was time. Ah, but before that, we need to wait a bit for my mana to go back up. I had the spine summoned for a while, it's quite a drain. Following their plan, they opened the door and engaged in the battle. Following the body double, they rushed into the wide circular room beyond the door. It was quite spacious, covered in a dome. They were at the very top of the castle. Sofia felt the door and mana shield closing behind her. The hero had warned them, they were trapped in there. In the middle was a big brass contraption, with a lot of moving parts. It was half fused with squishy-looking midanicid chunks, or rather, phageid body parts. An half monster, half machine abomination. Soon it would be getting surrounded by half-skeletons and gravestones surging from underground. There was about 8 meters between the door and the machine in the center. Sofia's first move as Parith lined the shields of light in front of her was to give it a hit with the whip mode spine. The target was so big it was impossible to miss, but the pointy tip of the whip bounced off of yet another invisible mana shield. It was also holding off the emerging hands of the underground skeletons. The phageid machine had dozens of tentacles and tubes plunging straight into the ground, and hundreds more linked to contraptions on the walls and ceiling. The shield can't be protecting all these tubes. That was also what Alith thought, rushing for the nearest wall-mounted machine. She couldn't easily reach the hanging tubes and tentacles that were several meters high. This had all happened in about a second. One of the wall machines emitted a clicking sound, a valve opened, releasing a wave of mana-charged steam. Alith's double had been the target, likely since it had been the first thing to enter the room. It was still running toward the big machine when the flow of air hit it. It almost instantly melted into a charred goo of burning flesh, then turned back to a thin mist of mana. Bad. The clone had no defenses but it still had 1,000 health, to be gone so fast. Sofia needed to avoid those steam attacks. She wasn't sure she could even survive one. The only problem was that they could come from anywhere. As almost every part of the circular room's wall was covered in weird half-brass half-phageid machinery. There were a lot hanging down at various heights from the dome ceiling as well. She could feel the presence of a hero somewhere, but she couldn't tell where exactly. Alith had reached one of the wall machines. She climbed on it with agile steps and upon reaching the top, sliced off the 3 half-phageid half-machine cables that had linked it to the thing in the middle. One erupted with white fluid, phageid blood, one with mana and one with the same overheated steam that had destroyed the clone. The searing steam washed over Alith, failing to overcome her heat immunity. It then hit the wall behind, melting down the surface of the wall's blue bricks into a half-liquid sludge that ran down the wall. The flow of things escaping from the cables was quickly cut off, redistributed to all the other cables, seeing as they swelled a bit more. Meanwhile, Sofia tried to find the power cores for the shield. If it was anything like the shield outside the castle, it would have them. Taking them down was their best shot at deactivating the shield. Her eyes followed the flow of mana coming to and fro the invisible shield. Perhaps it was because it was a smaller shield, but it was way harder than it had been outside. She couldn't find the links. By now she was pretty sure the hero was inside that machine, and the shield was why she couldn't locate him as she usually could. Sofia heard a clicking sound from her right. She reflexively turned, launching an attack with her bone whip. She totally missed the machine on the wall that had made the sound, but the whip hit one of the cables attached to another machine from above, creating a bright explosion of searing light that expanded then collapsed on itself in an otherworldly chiming sound. It looked like the instantaneous birth and death of a small star. The cables inside the explosion broke. But not the ones linking to the machine that had made the sound. A small vent opened, and a furious wave of mana-charged steam erupted in Sofia's direction. With her analytical thinking boost from Way of the Fool, she had all the time she needed to understand what was going to happen. Can't dodge. It would hit her in less time than it would take her to move a single step. Fuck. Chapter 83, through the steam and heat. The wave of hot air was well on its way. Peretha's shields of light appeared in between her and the steam, then broke one by one, failing to block it at all. Sofia's mana had still been quite high. It took a deep plunge. The only thing she could do in so little time was using instantaneous skills. Summon blood. The skill had gone all the way up to level 62 from all the training after and during their digging sessions. Summon blood, summons liquid human blood anywhere in a 62 meters, 1 * skill level, radius from the Saintess, must be free space. The quantity of blood summoned this way is, 1 skill level mana spent, milliliters. She summoned for 20,000 mana of blood, spreading it all between her and the steam burst. But this was nothing but a bit of blood, it wouldn't be enough on its own. Inside the blood, she emptied some of the bones from the storage of her armor. A wall of blood and bone appeared in between her and the attack. It was already collapsing, but that didn't matter, the mana-charged steam hit it. Everything melted down, the blood vaporized, creating even more steam. When the blast actually reached her, it was only an uncomfortably hot air wave. Her health still took a hit as her skin burned, she lost about 400 health points. Have to thank Orvad for this storage trick. Her health however climbed back up by 60, it was the lifesteal from her weapon. Since it was level 100 it would heal her for 10% of the damage dealt. That means the light burst right then was 600 damage? It was the first time she could know exactly how effective an attack of hers was. Considering it had hit 3 cables, that was 200 health points per severed cable. Sofia retreated, she backed up near a small section of the wall that had no machinery on it, and looked to be in a blind spot. No steam attack should be able to reach her there. Pereth had switched his goal to severing more cables for now, but Sofia knew he was ready to teleport to her anytime. She cancelled Graveyard of the Righteous. As things were it would only be a load on her already dwindling mana. Health, 5204/5565. Mana, 24,752/46,000. She could pull this wall stunt a second time but that would be it for her in that fight if she did, unless she wanted to lose 10 levels to activate her demon form. I need to create a safe zone. Since the machines on the wall were so dangerous, she wanted to cut the cables of all those around her, it would make it easier to deal with whatever the thing tried to do next. Alith and Pereth were already downing cables on her left, so she attacked those on the right. Her aim with the bone whip was downright terrible. Yet there were so many cables that even when she missed, it would still touch something else, triggering a bright explosion. The battle had gone on for about 8 or 9 seconds total but Sofia felt like it had already been forever. More cables were severed. Another 2 steam attacks targeted Alith and Pereth. Alith ignored it, and the skeleton took part of the hit before he managed to teleport back to Sofia. Between his higher magical damage negation and shapeless armor of light, he only lost about a third of his health. He might have survived without teleporting. The skeleton chicken went right back on the offensive, and Sofia launched another whip attack on the hanging cables. Alith had snapped 12 cables total, Pereth 5 and Sofia 10. There had to be at least 200 cables still going through the room, so that was maybe about a tenth of them. It was enough that the shielded half-machine half-phagiad in the center had to directly evacuate some of the surplus it couldn't redirect to other cables. It didn't leak any of the white fluid or mana but it let out a lot of steam that had nowhere to go because of the dome-shaped shield. So the machine damaged itself. By now Sofia had understood that the underground cables fed the machine that spread its resources around the whole room through the hanging cables. Maybe the self-damage from the excess steam was what triggered it, but the machine in the middle moved. What had looked like a haphazard pile of brass machinery pieces and phagiad flesh morphed and rearranged itself. The whole room started heating up. Walls of fire soaring from floor vents divided it into 4 quarters. The machines on the walls exploded in flames and steam bursts one by one in a clockwise fashion, starting from the one furthest away from Sofia in her quarter of the room. The many contraptions hanging from the ceiling became bright red from their interior heat. There would also be a massive attack coming from above soon. This is fucked. Do I transform now? She wanted to keep her apostle transformation as a last resort, especially since she wasn't sure how good it actually was compared to the original. Or how long it would take her to transform. She didn't need to formulate a plan. Alith appeared, walking straight through the wall of flames. Go through! Alith exclaimed, dropping down into a push-up position, lined up with the fire wall. She was clogging the vent. Sofia rushed to jump over her and Perith followed. Then Alith sprang up and ran for the next wall. Like this they went around the whole room. The wall-mounted steam machines exploded one by one in their wake, as if chasing them, always a step behind. Sofia's dress should have protected her from the heat somewhat, but now the whole room was like the inside of a volcano. The crystal walls were melting from the heat all the way until the only part of it that was left was a second layer behind the mana shield that enveloped the whole room. Sofia dispelled her bone whip as she ran around the room. Need to save mana. To have a mana shield sandwiched between wall layers was an interesting design Sofia couldn't help but notice, even though it was absolutely not the time for that. Next the ceiling machines launched their attacks. This time it was not a clockwise motion but a sweeping shower of fireballs, raining straight down from the ceiling like a meteor shower. Sofia and Alith were at about the midway point of the trajectory. Sofia gave Alith and Perith an order, cover me. She curled up into a ball against the outer wall's mana shield, stepping right into the melted midanicite that used to be the room's walls. Her forearms and lower legs were directly against the floor. So they were submerged in molten blue crystal. Despite the bone armor, it burned, her health was slowly going down. I'm getting cooked. Alith sprawled over her, trying to cover Sofia's head and torso as much as possible. Perith stood a bit on the side. Sofia looked through Perith's vision. Although she would be hit by at most 4 of the fireballs as she was against the wall, each of them exploded as they touched ground in a worrying display of firepower. And every ceiling machine exploded after firing, because why not add some more heat and shrapnel to the mix? At least that meant they couldn't fire twice. Some of the ceiling machines straight up exploded without firing. Each of these shook the whole castle and added even more heat to the room as they bathed the ceiling in waves of flames. Misfires? The fireballs that would reach Sofia were fired as half of the room was already engulfed in the fiery explosions. She ordered Perith to jump away and start channeling gravity well, somewhat diverting the fireballs away from her and Alith. Then he would cancel the skill and teleport back. But he never teleported back. Channeling gravity well at full power as the fireballs from all around collapsed toward him. Just before they hit him, he used a last greater heal on Sofia, restoring her to full health. All the fireballs compounded as they hit Perith, creating a greater explosion. The hero, Perith, has succumbed. You smooth-skulled skeleton! Who told you to die? Most of the shockwave of the massive explosion was contained by the remaining effects of gravity well, but nothing could stop the heat. She couldn't do the blood bones wall trick this time, the attack was too much. She needed every gram of bones to refresh the armor. She would fare way better if it didn't run out like it had when she was hit by the explosion of her own attack during the Siren Queen fight. With Alith body blocking some of the attack, the bone armor had much less to deal with. It burned down and reformed, as many times as needed. Chapter 84, Show Stealer. Sofia's health left her in waves in the down times of the armor as the heat washed over her. At least her vitals were safe thanks to Alith cradling her. What took the most damage were her wings, which had no protection at all, they were almost completely destroyed. It was a ridiculous scene as Alith did her best to sneak in a maiden's kiss to heal Sofia up whenever the armor broke enough to expose skin. There wasn't much left of the original room after the attack. They still couldn't see outside because of the second layer of wall behind the shield that enveloped the place. Alith and Sofia stood back up, almost 20 centimeters deep into molten midanicite goo. Since the whole room was inside a dome-shaped shield, it had nowhere to go, transforming the area into a deadly pool of high-temperature liquid crystal. The only place left with solid ground was the small island on which the machine was standing, as it had been protected by a separate shield. Sofia summoned some blood nearby. As it hit the molten floor, it helped dissipate some heat, creating an unstable but solid platform she could stand on without burning her legs. In the middle of the room, the hybrid machine had finished its transformation. It looked like a very deformed spider with 4 legs, 4 tentacles, and 4 eyes. All distributed around a big metal cylinder that had been hidden inside the machine until then. Sofia felt a presence inside the cylinder. Hero, LV-182. He's inside the cylinder, she informed Alith. One by one, the last few cables that were still connected to the machine popped out of it. The shield that had been protecting the machine all this time was gone. Identify could finally reach the damn thing without the mana shield getting in the way. It didn't pick up much, the main body must have all counted as a monster as it returned nothing, but there was still a result. A familiar description appeared 4 times, the creature's eyes. Midenicid Catalyst, a masterfully crafted spell catalyst made of gold and midenicid. Enhances the speed of mana projectiles by up to 20%. Item level, 80. Grade, Forgotten. When she had asked the hero what they should be wary about, its answer had been eyes. It was very clear why now. One of the 4 eyes even had a slightly different description. Midenicid Catalyst, a masterfully crafted spell catalyst made of gold and midenicid. Enhances the speed of mana projectiles by up to 50%. Item level, 150. Grade, Legendary. It was Sofia's first time seeing an item being labeled as legendary. She agreed that the effect was strong enough to warrant the title. She didn't know what kind of projectiles were in store, but she would have a hard time dodging them, even without the catalysts to speed them up. The small platform she stood on didn't allow for much movement, and each bit of blood she used to make it larger was as much mana she couldn't use anymore. Why do my wings have to be so large that I can't fly in rooms like these? It would make everything so much easier. Health, 3020/5565. Mana, 19,254/46,000. Sofia expected a grueling fight. She started invoking her spine of the Black Sun once more. Except Alith had a different idea. Using Lady Double, she left a copy of herself as a stationary meat shield in front of Sofia, and reappeared half a second later on the hybrid spider's back, crouching atop the cylinder. In 3 swipes of her blades, she opened the top of the cylinder, white fluid overflowing from it sprayed everywhere. The creature's eyes sprayed small fireballs in all directions, but they couldn't reach Alith who was on its back. Sofia hid behind the double, only taking marginal damage from the fireball's explosions. The 4 tentacles of the creature, while weaker looking than those of the actual phageid squids from outside, were probably still very dangerous. They all cocked back to lash out at the banshee. "I'm so useless!" An ear-piercing shriek resounded in the room. If Sofia calculated correctly from the hero's level, there was about 30% chance for an instant death to occur. Now that the machine wasn't protected by a mana shield anymore, it was vulnerable. It was uncertain whether it had hearing, but seeing how it reacted, it seemed it did. No instant death. That looks like insanity instead. Now the spider was incoherently flailing around, stepping down into the molten pool of midenicid around it, and throwing fireballs everywhere. Alith had a hard time even staying latched to it, but she was no longer threatened by the tentacles. With one of her weapons in her mouth, she plunged her hand inside the open cylinder, fishing out a withered naked man. He had tens of small blue crystal tendrils sprouting from his body, binding him to the spider. Alith smacked her Kama's blade inside of the man's head as if plunging a pickaxe in sand. She pulled it out, bringing the blade toward her. The spider stopped moving, collapsing under its own weight. Spine of the Black Sun reached level 101. Sanctity reached level 25. Sanctity reached level 39. You have murdered Zhnglu, Flamebringer leave 182. You have defeated Phageid larvae, leave 158. You gained a level. *6. Strange name. Damn guy really fused himself with a Phageid in a weird machine? Heroes are all completely insane, aren't they? Alith turned toward Sofia, who was still hiding behind the smoldering remnants of the double, and gave her a thumbs up with a smirk. Don't smile with the weapon in your mouth, you look like an evil ghost, Sofia joked. Actually she didn't even look that bad, presentable was in full effect to make her look as good as possible, considering the situation. Alith sheathed both of her weapons as she jumped down from the dead monster, straight into the molten crystal floor. Stop trying to be funny and let me heal you up. Funny fight this one. Did you see how I never lost a single health point? She asked, wading through the molten floor. Her mouth was overflowing with blood the whole time, the words came out as a ghastly gargled mess, though Sofia still understood. Of course I noticed, what do you think? Your blessing is unfair against fire users. If I knew it would be like this I wouldn't even have entered the damn room, I was useless the whole time. And stop talking already, can't you see the state you're in yourself? That's nothing, just a few hundred health points. Doesn't even hurt that much. She struggled a bit to step up on Sofia's platform, the floor was starting to solidify again. Looking up at the tired Saintess, Alith answered, tapping Sofia's armored shoulder, you did well. Don't sell yourself too short. She winked, and take off the dang armor already, how am I supposed to heal you like this? Her every word was becoming more unintelligible, and blood flowed out of her mouth like a fountain. I'm serious, stop talking. The skill really ruins her throat. It's strong though. Sofia felt the shield around the room faltering. We can leave. After Sofia was fully healed up, they dragged the hero's dead body out of the hybrid mechanical spider, and into the small room that led to the dome. It was strange how clean and intact it still was after what had happened right besides it. They opened a window and Alith stuck a hand out to catch the light of heal undead Sofia cast outside. Meanwhile Sofia was already looting the dead body. All right, let's see. Looks like a storage ring. He didn't lie. Sofia plucked out a massive polished red stone ring from the man's index finger. She was about to inspect it when she felt worrying mana movements from the outside. Huge mana movements, all around the castle. She looked outside through the window. Everything looked normal. And the main shield around the castle was still up. What is happening? Looking around, it was very easy to pinpoint where the mana surges came from. The power cores. Sofia's mind went back to the scene where fireballs rained from the ceiling in the battle just now. Some machines had exploded stronger than the rest, without firing. Then the shield around the mechanical Phageid spider had died down. No way is it going to explode. Sofia woke up on the cold crystal floor, a fair bit shaken. I passed out? Oh right, the explosion. At least her health was still almost maxed out, and she didn't really feel pain besides inside her ears. She didn't feel any debris around her either, it seemed the castle as a whole was undamaged. The shield must have held longer than the explosion lasted despite the power cores being gone. She opened her eyes, and blinked a few times. Now the world was black. She also realized that she didn't actually hear anything. Not even herself moving. Ah! So the explosion didn't kill me. But I'm blind and deaf? Great! Sofia expected to panic from her own situation and was actually shocked about how calmly she was taking this discovery. That can be healed. Right? It turned out her mana perception still worked. It took her a few seconds to adapt. The boundaries of the room were clear in her perception. That's because the crystal walls and floor can't hold mana, they look like empty zones. She could also see her own body, or at least the mana inside it, and Alith's, who was sprawled on the floor nearby. Chapter 85, The Ring in the Ring in the Ring. Sofia woke up Alith with a pat on her shoulder. Her reaction was the complete opposite to Sofia's. She panicked, looking around, moving, touching around, covering her own face. Is she in pain? It was impossible to decipher her expression with just the mana flow. Not sure what to do, Sofia pinned her down in a hug. Alith resisted for a bit before she understood what was happening. Damn, she's way stronger than me. At times like this it was quite practical to be much taller than her. Sofia kept Alith in her embrace until she completely calmed down. All right, her heart rate went down. Time to get serious. How do I? Communication between two blind and deaf persons was a bit of a problem. Sofia had tried talking from the start, but seeing as Alith gave no reaction, she was visibly in the same predicament. Sofia grabbed Alith's hand and brought it to her mouth. Alith didn't react. She kissed the back of the hand. Then she shoved her own hands back against Alith's face. Surely she got the message. With a warm sensation on her hand, Sofia regained her lost senses and the few HP she was missing. The furniture in the room had fallen to the floor, but that was it. Alith had a bit of blood running from the ears, and Sofia guessed she was the same. She helped Alith up and led her to a window. Holy shit! It's all gone. There was nothing left of the previous locked city, only the castle was left, floating on a small round island amidst the dark void. The shield had protected them. Okay, but why does it protect against explosions but not sound? The explosion had been pretty intense, and it left nothing behind. I guess it all fell. So the castle is what was holding everything? It won't fall now that the guy is dead, right? And what about the mana bubble? It's fine, right? Either way, she did what she had to do, guiding Alith's hand out the window and casting Heal Undead. Oh, thank the gods I can see again, Alith said, relieved, waving her hands in front of her eyes. You can get healed from getting halved, so it shouldn't come as too big of a surprise. Guess so, still, brought up bad memories. The power cores exploded then? We didn't even get any XP from the squids. Well, we couldn't know they would explode like that. We should be happy that we didn't die. Wasn't in the description that the cores could also work as explosives. At least the castle should be safe now. And if we can find a way to recharge the ring, this can be our permanent home. Didn't you say you wanted a castle? Alith looked at the void outside. That's not quite what I had in mind. And the old things I brought from the desert dungeon all blew up out there. A castle in an empty plain's better than no castle. At least we should be pretty safe here. What now? I have the hero's storage ring. It's yours if you want it. Really? Can I have the sand pendant instead? I really like to nap in there. You really want this over a ring that's larger and without sand? You did all the work in this fight. Yep, what do I care for storage space anyway? I don't mind a backpack. It's pretty much one of the only things Sir Doppel here allows me to wear, she complained, squinting, looking down at her chest. You can go back to wearing inferior protection if you so desire, Master. I have no doubt I can find an owner that appreciates me for what I am, it complained, offended. The talking cloth was promptly ignored by the duo. Fine then, take the pendant, I won't miss the sand. Handing the cursed sun-shaped thing to Alith, Sofia identified the hero's ring. Rubedu's Tailbiter, a masterfully crafted storage ring, born of the collaboration of two great human mages and a dragon. The wearer's mana regeneration is 5% faster. Practically unbreakable. Item level, 100. Grade, Legendary. Observing it closely, the iridescent red gem the ring was made of was finely sculpted to resemble some kind of limbless dragon biting its own tail. On the inside were engraved 3 sets of initials. Z.L, T.L.D.R, A.D. And I thought we might find treasure inside. The treasure was the ring. A dragon. Also this Telder guy, that's the Archlich Tyrene was talking about, right? How huge must this thing be inside? How much money is it worth? I'd be an absolute idiot to sell that, right? I really need to find a way to prevent people from identifying it. This is a bright sparkling rob me sign. She shared her findings with Alith, who was equally mind-blown. After thinking for a few seconds, she decided to double down on her previous choice. Well, all the more reasons for you to keep it. 5% mana regeneration boost is huge for you with how much your spells cost. Mine aren't all that bad, only Lady Double is a big drain. But to be fair, if something inside catches my eye, I'll get first pick. If you're fine with that. Of course. Well then, Sofia then uttered the password, Iriadel. She felt her mana bind with the ring. It was deeper than that, even. She felt like her soul was bound to the ring. Nobody else could open it now, she was sure of it. Not without killing her and using the password. I get why I couldn't open Orvod's tooth now. She let her mind peer into the ring's inside space. It was big. Real big. The size of her prison room at the church big. And that was nothing to scoff at. How many thousands of books can I fit in there? She hadn't gotten much time to read ever since her summoning, yet that was still the first thing she thought about. It was interesting how the space inside of the pendant was a sphere, but inside the ring it was a flattened cube. Really like a large room. Sofia estimated it to be 15 meters large and wide, and about 5 meters high. There were surprisingly very few things inside. Sofia took all the contents of the ring out one by one. There was a painting of an elven woman with 3 children, 2 small ornate middenicate boxes, 2 large wooden chests, 2 sets of men's clothing, and a weird 2 meters tall rectangle thing with a door. They opened the largest thing first, since it took a third of the room. Hero's food locker, designed to work inside of a storage item. This food locker has 2 compartments you can use to keep your food from degrading, hot or cold, for centuries. Item level, 0 grade, precious. There was a single piece of food inside, in the cold compartment. A red berry cake with a cream heart drawn on it, and a single spoonful missing from it. Sofia stored the large thing and the clothes and the painting back in the ring. It's better not to think about it too much. Especially considering what we're going to be doing to him. The large chests next? Alith asked. Sofia shrugged. The first large chest contained a set of 4 power cores, each well secured in their own compartments, and a strange rectangular brass contraption. Alith slowly closed the chest, put that back in there. Actually, maybe we should throw it into the void. She shivered as she peeked at the outside world again, at the black void that used to be occupied by a huge city. The next chest held something much more mundane yet exciting. Money. They took everything out to count one by one. 10 pouches of 100 gold coins, with one only halfway filled. 53 gold ingots, which judging by the similar weight to the pouches, were worth 100 coins each. 3 smaller pink ingots. Orichalcum. And a single fingernail-sized green ingot wrapped in a red cloth. And that's mithril. Is every ingot worth 100 gold? Sofia thought about it for a while, considering how much mithril had been used to coat Alith's weapons and sheaths. Alith's weapons had to be worth at least 5,000 gold if her theory was right. No way. That has to be wrong. We paid 600. There was also a middenicate ingot. But why? Primal middenicate ingot, forged 100 times in dragon fire. This ingot of pure compressed middenicate is completely impermeable to mana. Item level, 0 grade, flawless. Sofia gulped. That has to be worth more than everything else in there. It seemed this hero had a close relation with a dragon. At such a low level? And why bother doing this if they weren't going to use it? Either way, we're absolutely rich now. If we make it out. Still no ring. There were only 2 small boxes left. Surely there would be another keyring in there. There had to be. Chapter 86, Dead Man Tells. The ring was in the first of the 2 small boxes they opened. The other box was locked. There wasn't much in there, The coveted ring sat wedged in a notched round pedestal thing made of gold, which had 3 more empty slots. So we're missing 2 rings. You elsewhere be charging port. This complex magical item was designed to restore the spent spatial properties of enchanted blue glass. Item level, 0 grade, regular. Besides that was a neat stack of 7 sealed letters in a hollow glass ball with a needle floating inside it, and layers upon layers of ritual circles engraved on the glass. As well as what looked like the stamp that had been used to seal the envelopes, and a tiny mithril key. Sofia identified the glass ball first. Keyring locator, a keyring locator. Infuse with mana to cycle the currently tracked ring. Item level, 0 grade, regular. Looks like we can actually find all the rings. Trying it out, the needle switched between the ring in the box and the ring on Alitha's finger. Either there's no more or it cannot find the other ones. Might have to do with being in this weird void. Or they're too far. Sofia finally identified the ring on the port. It was the exact same description as the one they already had, and it had all its uses left. It was lucky that she was already sitting on the floor or she might have keeled over. Finally it was absolutely certain that she could escape. She wiped the teardrops that had begun to form in the corner of her eyes, and picked up the stack of letters. They all bore the same wax seal of a limbless dragon biting its tail. Each of the envelopes had a single line on the front. Sofia read them out loud. To Iriadel. To Zhng Arellen. To Zhng Zhn. To Zhng Adriel. To Alcorm D. To terrible limping drunkard Richard. Sofia had to stop reading to chuckle. That's the name of the infamous Archlich, over level 400, master of storage items? The terrible limping drunkard, Richard? I wonder if it would be dangerous to deliver this letter. And I guess Alcorm D is the dragon? And the others are for his wife and kids. So the last letter. To my savior. This one is for us, open it already, Alith urged her. Sofia broke the wax seal and opened the envelope. It contained a single folded sheet of clean paper, covered in a tightly packed but refined handwriting. December 9, 1758 from Zangdar, the margin. To you, who are reading this. Thank you. You may take everything from the storage and the castle, I only humbly request that you do not open the other envelopes. And that, if you are so inclined, you see that they reach their recipient. See it as a last favor to a dead man. I'm sure that you have many questions, many of which you may find an answer to if you peruse the books in my study. For the rest, I will explain it here. The first thing is the reason why you found me like you did. Let me explain the history of Zangdar. Me and my team had uncovered a massive cave network full of Middenisset. Motivated by the zeal of one of our dwarven companions, we eventually established a city there. Originally only intended to be used by our 13-member group. Glorious times. Iriadel was our leader. She had this castle built in the center for herself, though I eventually moved in. Things got out of hand as commerce developed around the minerals, and a messy outer city grew, surrounding our original abode. Home to humans, dwarves, and elves alike. The real troubles started about 50 years later. When a mining operation burst into a new unknown cavern, much deeper than where the city was situated. Inside we uncovered 2 things, the blue crystalline ruins of a civilization long gone, and a set of tablets. These are in the locked box, if you did not yet open it. A long series of events followed. Eventually what was meant to be the ultimate line of defense of the city became its undoing. The rings meant to take us back to the main realm didn't work, there wasn't enough mana. Worse, we had unknowingly brought a spawn of the attacking aliens with us. We escaped the main threat, only to succumb to its weaker form. Panic spread in the outer city. There was nothing I could do. Mana in this realm was too scarce for me to even defend myself. As I write this, it still is pretty scarce. I couldn't accept my own death. Like a coward, I hid in the castle, while the inner city was still safe. I was powerless as all my citizens struggled and died, while the aliens multiplied in the outer city. I couldn't even let them in, the mana being too little to open the doors. I thought of many plans, but by the time I could do anything, everyone was dead. The outer city was now teeming with alien life. It was only a matter of time before they got me too. I worked hard on finishing the experimental power cores and spreading them around the inner city, encased in Midanisit so they would be safe from the aliens. It was grueling work. The only mana available was my own, with its terribly slow regeneration, but I had no other choice. Luckily I managed to get enough power cores ready before any alien reached the inner city. They ran on low power, but the numbers would make up for the lack of mana. It was enough to cut the aliens' perception of the castle, and that was enough for them to let it be when they finally climbed the walls. I was safe, trapped, and alone. Without the rings to serve as anchor points, nobody would ever reach here from the outside. And even if they did, they would be trapped here with me. So I hatched up a plan to increase this realm's mana. I had some preliminary success, though it wasn't enough. The ambient mana dissipated as fast as I could produce it. It seemed the air bubble that was meant to be around the city wasn't as efficient as I had expected it to be. And tinkering with it wasn't an option anymore. I tried and failed to leave 3 times. The rings left by themselves. The first one was the prototype. It wasn't even halfway charged, so when it disappeared, I thought the final and fully charged ones would work. But they didn't. They also left me empty-handed in this realm. It turned out they had access to enough mana to activate but not enough to take me with them. I do not even know where they landed. I realized my mistake. If someone comes here with the rings I lost, they would be trapped too. Even worse, they would appear at the preset locations in the swarmed outer city. I have wasted too many lives already. You who read this letter. You know what I did, you know how I will end up today when I enter my laboratory for the last time. I have been rotting away here too many years already. I have no hope to leave anymore. If the grafting goes well, this realm will have enough mana for you to safely leave. This will cost me my life. But I can at least allow the unlucky stragglers who stumble upon my rings to not suffer the same fate. I do not know why you pushed through to come and meet me, when your ring could have taken you back to where you're from, but I thank you. I pray that you go and retrieve the 2 other rings with the device I've created if you can, so that no one else finds themselves here. The device should be able to track them down as long as you're within 1,000 kilometers. I realize how much of an impossible task that is. Sorry. There is nothing in it for you. But I can go with a lighter mind knowing that you will at least have the option. Finally, now that you killed me, I must warn you that your time to leave is counted. Since I am no longer here to produce it, the mana will eventually run too thin to leave again. This might take anywhere from a few months to a year. If your regeneration isn't less than half of what it used to be in the physical realm, that means there is still more than enough. But I urge you to not come back unless your natural regeneration, in an environment deprived of mana, is over 200 mana points a second. May you meet my family, I beg of you, please let them have my letters. I would advise not sharing the knowledge you find on the tablets with anyone. For your own safety, it might even be better not to look at them. But I could not bring myself to destroy them. Indulge in this forbidden knowledge if you wish. As a final note, I would also advise against entering the castle's underground floor. This is where the plane crossing device is. It is also what keeps the city afloat and the air breathable. Do not go near it, unless you seek to destroy what's left of Zangdar. That is all. For putting an end to my self-imposed misery, I can never thank you enough. ZHNGLU. Chapter 87, The Tablets. Sofia and Alith exchanged about the contents of the letter. The story was interesting, but their main takeaway was that they weren't quite owners of a void castle just yet. Coming back here before they were high level enough to supply the place with mana was a dangerous bet. Now they wanted to see these famous forbidden knowledge tablets. What could go wrong, they thought. Though a bit apprehensive, their curiosity took over. The tiny mithril key slid into the box's lock. Layers upon layers of magic protection that Sofia hadn't even noticed broke one by one as she turned the key, then finally, the lid popped open. Inside, snugly stacked on their side like a deck of big stone cards were 7 smooth Middenicid tablets the size of small books. Sofia carefully took them out of the box. On the front of each tablet was an image sculpted directly into the crystal, the only color being the blue of the crystal. Each tablet had a number of dots inscribed on the top. They were already ordered starting from 1, it seemed. They had only seen the 2 first tablets for now. The first tablet, with a single dot on the top, depicted what looked like an elf or a vampire woman, faceless, and with a ring that had 2 opposite spikes over her head. That was it. The second tablet depicted the same long-eared person, though she had a face this time, no ring over her head. She was depicted plowing a field. This is the dangerous forbidden knowledge. Alith commented. It's true that the first picture was a bit unsettling, but let me identify it. This set of carvings contain great secrets and possibilities. Level, 500. Grade, forgotten. All right, I said nothing, Alith said, throwing her hands up, after reading the identify prompt Sofia shared with her. Sofia swallowed her saliva, and removed the second tablet from the stack, revealing the third. This one was strange in that it only had 2.5 dots on top. The picture was that of a slender hand that was lit on fire. The fourth tablet had 3 dots on top. It featured the elven woman again, but she was blurry, vague, faint, as if behind a fogged window. The fifth tablet, 4 dots, this is getting really weird. In this one, the woman was deformed, twisted, bloated, jagged. If not for the ears still being there, it would have been hard to understand it was still the same person being depicted. That was it, no scenery, no explanation. Only the disturbing image of a mutated and mutilated elven woman. Sofia couldn't stop her hands, she revealed the next tablet. There was no image. 5 dots stood eerily at the top, and where would usually be the carving of the elven woman was an empty space. All that could be carved out had been carved out, leaving only a blank indent in the tablet. Someone removed the carving? It could have been the case, but it didn't look like it. The surface was smooth and clean, not what you'd expect of someone taking the time to erase an image from a crystal tablet. Maybe it's by design? Looks like an empty food tray from the orphanage. Except it's level 500 and made of fancy blue crystal. Only one left. I don't feel like I've learned much, Alith said. Kind of feels like a story, except we only get to see key moments. Maybe the last tablet will make it clear what happened to the woman or something like that. Saying this, she revealed the last tablet. 6 dots on top. Sofia froze when she saw the carving. She had first seen the pointy elvish ears she had expected, but they didn't belong to a woman. They belonged to an extremely familiar depiction of a lanky man. Tidy suit. Small flat hat. No facial expression. Blank eyes. Sofia felt the world swirl around her. In her peripheral vision, Alith seemed transfixed on the tablet's image, eerily so. She didn't even breathe. Sofia looked up from the tablet at Alith. She was completely still. Behind her stood the same man that had appeared in the church when she got her blessing of the deep. Exactly how he had been that day. He was looking at her. The deep is an ally. Definitely an ally. Absolutely an ally. Sofia tried to convince herself. Unlike the first time, she wasn't unable to move. She could feel her heart beating madly in her chest. Yet she didn't dare to even blink. The man frowned. He disappeared. Sofia was almost relieved that the experience was over. But she could no longer move. The whole world was still. Even her thoughts became muddled. She couldn't even form complex thoughts. It felt like she had been there for a second and forever. Then the man appeared again. He was no longer frowning. Sofia's mind became clear again. But she still couldn't move. She couldn't even bring herself to panic anymore. If it was her end, then so be it. There was nothing she could do, not even close her eyes. Jumbled system notifications flashed before her eyes. Twisting and turning. They were unreadable. They morphed until it became an odd system prompt. It looked normal but also completely wrong. Please select a mark for Sofia. Mark of Afinareth. The Inquisitor. Mark of Ormancleith. The Regulator. BGBSSNGBYWN Spibblhoers. Nun Enjka Yursani. Blessing he purifier S rank you are fated to cleanse this real. Dage to Dion's *100. Experience gains *1.5 until level 300. Blessing of bloating A rank you are the ever growing. Gain bonus strength and health proportional to your body weight. The baptized hero is currently unconscious, giving hero's blessing draw privilege to the summoner. LV.40, Paratha's movements are 43%, 1 * skill level, Duiator. What was that thing Alith said? Don't ask too many questions when things make no sense. I have a lot of questions right now. Too many. At least I'm not dead yet. Do I absolutely have to choose? The man disappeared and reappeared closer to Sofia. I think that means I do. Do I really have a choice? The Deep. Afinareth. Ormancleith. This man came last time and my name changed to Afinareth. My next contact with the Deep was when I passed out in the pyramid. That's it. That thing was Ormancleith? They're asking me to choose one of them? I'm not sure how I feel about a mark. A blessing is already something that's weird enough. Is weird godly entities fighting over me what's happening right now? The man appeared even closer. Shit. Sofia picked the mark of Afinareth. She didn't even consider the other choice. It might have been because she would feel like she had betrayed her benefactor, otherwise, she would probably delude herself in thinking that. But it actually likely had more to do with the fact that the supposed Afinareth's face was about 5 centimeters away from hers. The lanky man disappeared. Sofia and Alith fell to their knees. Alith was first to talk. That was it. That was deep, man. Wasn't it? You saw. I saw the whole thing. I couldn't move at all. That was fucking terrifying. Oh. Sofia. My dear. Did you just sell our souls to the devil? Because that last line in my status is very ominous. Who knew I would become a witch for real? Well. You saw it. Do you think I should have refused? Do you think I could? No. But do you at least have any idea what this mark of Afinareth does? It doesn't have a description. I know as much as you. There was a single line coming with it, the Inquisitor. I also had the choice to choose Ormancleith the Regulator. You probably made the correct choice. I would have done the same at least, considering your name. Yet. Do we just act like nothing happened? The 7th tablet even disappeared, Sofia told Alith, showing her the remaining tablets. No way in hell. If the system doesn't want to tell us what this thing is, I'll make it. Alith exclaimed, saying so, a small scroll appeared in her hand, taken from the sand pendant. I want to identify the mark of Afinareth in my status. Will that even work? Sofia asked. She got her answer instantly as the scroll disintegrated in Alith's hand. That sure is a way to use the Identify with System Commentary scroll. I never guessed she would use it like that. Any results? Ascending request, Tier 4 scribe action required, please wait. Okay. Let's store everything back in the ring until then. Except for the charging port thing, put your keyring in there actually. Oh, we also need to go back and take the eyes of the spider thing, those were catalysts like the one we found before. The duo was busy cleaning the dead hero's skeleton with sand and blood when Alith finally got the results for her scroll use. Chapter 88, Probably Fine. Alith shared the message with Sofia before even reading it. Mark of Afinareth. A mark left on your soul and life essence by the Third Lord, Afinareth the Inquisitor. The Lords are beings ill understood. The Lord's plane is currently out of system range. No connection has been established, though numerous scribes have been lost. The intent in leaving this mark is unknown. This mark cannot be undone. This mark cannot be easily noticed except by the system, classes hyper-specialized in soul tempering, and in all likelihood, by the Lords. No adverse effects from the mark have been recorded. 4 functions of the mark have been discovered. Soul protection. Due to the irremovable nature of the mark, your soul is now similarly impossible to erase. Please note that this does not prevent death. Any external attempt at tampering with your soul may result in severe backlash toward the source. System-driven upgrades and progression are considered internal tempering. As a side effect of the soul protection, you are now much more resilient to planar drag, also known as summoning sickness. The leveling process of Saintess Sofia's Blessing of the Deep has been changed to unknown conditions. It will still affect you and all of their summoned heroes. There is a 5th function, 95% certainty, that could not be deciphered. It shows patterns of danger sensing algorithms. There are no other bearers of this mark under the system besides your party. The system recommends never mentioning this mark to anyone. For your safety, all such attempts will be dispelled. Good luck. Good luck. Does this mark us as his property or something like that? This doesn't look so bad, if you forget the ominous system comments and where it came from, Alith commented. I'm not even going to question anything. If some dark god that can even hide from the system decides that we're like his adoptive daughters, or like pets, what are we going to do about it? Besides, the deep has only been helpful so far. As long as it's not restricting me in any way, then I don't mind, Sofia said. She returned to what they were doing previously. Should be clean enough, let me do the thing. Sofia summoned blood directly into the grooves of the ritual circle. She was attempting some slight modifications of the ritual. She had altered the circle in some parts, and thrown in a pair of her sliced-off bone wings. She wasn't very optimistic about the success, but there was no reason she couldn't at least try. Worst case, I draw another circle. The circle lit up with mana as usual. The bones flew up, rearranging themselves into a coherent skeleton. At least the base ritual worked. But the wings were still on the floor. Oh well. I'll do better next time. Perith was finally a human skeleton again. His eyes lit up, the usual bright halo appeared above his head. Facing Sofia, he bowed. Okay, this is very much not a dumb chicken now. She wasn't that shocked about it, after all Perith had died because he disobeyed her to protect her more. If he was capable of that much, it was about time that she accepted Perith wasn't a mindless pile of bones anymore. I wonder how much health he has now, with the blessing and all. Name, Perith level, 119. Health, 15,000/15,000. Stamina, 12,950/12,950. Mana, 11,900/11,900. Alright, what? He had like 6,000 health and stamina as a chicken. The difference is huge. We need to find him a troll skeleton or something like that. Alith, you know how Perith had more health than us as a chicken? Look how much he's got now. That's a huge guy, could probably take a hit or two from the squids and still be able to fight. Too bad they exploded. Whatever, monsters to kill aren't hard to find. We'll hit 120 before we know it. Let's quickly loot the castle and get the hell out of this place already. The duo stormed through the castle, picking up things to store in Sofia's new ring. The first places to fall victim to their greed were the hero's wife and daughter's rooms. Beds, clothes, accessories, jewelry, anything they felt they could use ended up stacked up inside the ring, and that only took up a corner of the space. The hero's luxurious desk, his collection of quills, any expensive-looking memorabilia, all the books they could find. They stacked a lot in there, so much that Sofia was running out of mana to transfer things inside. Usually the cost was so low it was barely noticeable, but the quantity and weight of all she took added up to a lot. Overall, what they took was only a small dent in all the furniture and random stuff the castle had to offer, but most of it wasn't very valuable or interesting. It felt very much like they were robbing the place. That's technically all ours now though. No point leaving it here to rot. They stopped when the ring was half full. Better to keep some free space in case of an emergency. They already took much more than they could ever use anyway, and finding buyers for all this old stuff would probably be a pain. They would still try to at least cash in the paintings and sculptures. Free money is free. Sofia was especially happy that she now had a huge collection of books to read. Two of them in particular had piqued her interest, a rather innocuous introduction to written Elvish, and a very old and worn one named Advanced Mana Circuits that was hidden under a pillow. The only disappointing thing was that there wasn't a treasury of any kind in the castle. Explains why there's so much money in the ring. That actually made a lot of sense. Why wouldn't you keep all your money on you if you're strong enough to protect it? That's the worrying part. Don't feel all that strong yet. Hopefully this ring with the password and all is more secure. Don't want some high-level vampires to be looking in there. That's it, we're leaving. Finally. Now the question is, do we go back with the same ring, or do we try the other one, see where we land? Sofia asked, presenting a ring in each hand to Alith. Might as well see where this one goes, right? I'm going alone to scout. I'll be right back, Alith said as she grabbed the brand new keyring. She traced the ritual circles on the floor and disappeared. Fuck, she actually can't even use her ghost form if I'm not here. Why did I just accept? What if it's dangerous? She worried for nothing as her black-haired companion reappeared soon after, unscathed. What's up with the relieved expression? Do you have so little faith in me? I mean, what if it dropped you in an active volcano or something like that? Alith shrugged. I'd probably be fine even if it sent me directly into the sun. Heat immunity, remember? I have the slow fall ring if it drops me high in the sky, and I don't need to breathe, so I'd be good underwater. Really, unless it dropped me right in the face of a level 300 monster, I don't see what could have gone wrong. I still see a lot of ways it could go wrong, but sure. So what was it? Well, you're never gonna believe it. It was plains. That's it. Nothing else in sight. Greenish plains, a few trees in the distance. Some weird herd of four-legged animals far away. That's it. Beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. Fresh wind. Yeah, plains. No real reason to go there instead of the desert then. Unless the worm's still there. Are you kidding? It's been like at least 2 months, right? No way this huge thing would have been waiting for 3 insects like us for this long. Right. I just can't stop being paranoid about everything now. This whole thing about a soul parasite, really. It's fine. And we're like double immune to shit like that now with the blessing and the mark. Don't worry about it too much. Rather, we should be worried about the assholes at the church summoning you. It's been a while since then. Yeah. We need to get back to civilization and buy stuff against space magic and identify as soon as possible. Drakran again. Alith was getting impatient, playing with the rings. We'll see. Depends on where we are, if we find another capital city or one of the magic academies that could work too. And if someone high-level tries to screw with us, we can always pull out the vampire card. Might be enough to dissuade them. Sofia and Perith entered the circle, and they finally escaped the locked city. Didn't you say it was sunny? They were back to where they had escaped from the giant worm. It wasn't anywhere to be seen, but it was the middle of the night. Chapter 89, Journey to the South. Sofia decided that they should go see Tyrene, for no real reason other than wanting to socialize. Anything to forget where they had spent the last few months. But the winged woman wasn't at the glass workshop anymore. In fact, there wasn't much left there beside empty buildings. Seems like they finally came to pick her up. Too bad. She could have told us more about this Archlich guy. I wonder if it's worth it trying to bring him the letter. Would he reward us? Or would he kill us on the spot? And let's not even talk about the dragon. The green, cursed zone thing, was getting dangerously close to the abandoned workshop. It was a tall wall of thick vegetation growing so dense one couldn't see the ground. It had still been a few thousand meters away when they came here the first time, now it was already just a few hundreds meters shy of reaching the first house. No wonder they had to relocate. Sofia was about to grab Alith to fly up again when Alith interrupted her. Say, Sofia. I think I want to go alone for a bit. Ah. Not right now. I mean, when we reach civilization again, maybe we can go our own way for a little while. I kinda want to try some things, relax, take some more time to understand how this world works, you get me? What are you going on about? I thought I had been clear about this stuff, wasn't I? You do what you want, I don't mind either way. We need to set up a way to reunite after is all. Oh, and you should take some of the gold too if we're going to do this. They discussed this for a while then departed south. Alith didn't elaborate too much on what she wanted to do, only that she wanted to roam around alone for a while. Sofia was much more interested in trying to spend her newfound money, amassing knowledge, and perhaps even pay a visit to the vampire nation. In her mind, as long as she managed to buy her way into being safe from the church's summon, she was as good as done with the subject. She wouldn't mind being able to live and progress at a more relaxed pace. And after the clusterfuck that had been her first trial, she wouldn't enter the second one before being as ready as she could. No rushing it. She needed time. It was pretty clear to her that, compared to Alith's, her trial had been way too hard. If the second was going to be the same, she would be ready for it. And she had a new goal. One that would motivate her to progress. She would find whoever sent the soul parasite her way, and make a blessed armor out of their bones. The mountain range south of the desert was vast, way more than Sofia had imagined. It would have taken them forever to cross it without wings. Like at least half a year. To finally be able to use her wings freely was liberating. No more restricted space, no more mana-devouring sand. And sometimes she picked up mana currents that were so strong it propelled her forward at speeds she never even reached when she sprinted with the demon form in the trial. Meanwhile Alith was reading books in her ring. Funny how that works. An interesting fact was that the sand pendant couldn't go in the ring, likely because it could never be empty due to the sand. Sofia was curious about how spatial storage items really worked. She was more willing to go visit the Lich by the minute. Though it was unlikely he would be willing to share anything if he even deigned meeting her. The mountains flew by, giving way to a snowy forest of dark pines. Is it winter already? Between the trial and Zangdar, she had no clue what time of the year it was anymore. Eventually she flew across a river, and found a village by following it. Should I cut my wings before going there? Ah, whatever. Bone wings or not, she didn't believe with her appearance anyone would take her for a necromancer. Not unless I take out Parith and the spine at least. What did countryside villagers know about wings anyway? She knew actually, she had been one. They don't know shit. She spotted a young man fishing in the river a bit further. He was about 16 years old, an easy target. If her looks weren't enough to make a teenage boy think twice before running away screaming, then she didn't know what could. She did her best to land discreetly a few meters behind him. The river was quite loud. She folded her wings, but they were still partly visible behind her back. She stood out quite a lot with her light green robe, knee-deep in the untouched snow. Hi, excuse me? Can you help? The young man, who sat on a rock overlooking the river, was slightly startled. He turned his head to see who had called him. He looked like he didn't understand what was happening. Hello, he tried. Sofia smiled. Sorry, I know that it's a bit weird, but can you tell me today's date and where this is? I'm a bit lost. The question only confused him more, but he finally spotted the pointy bone bits coming from behind Sofia's back. It wasn't clear what he thought of it, but diligently answered. The new year was yesterday. And you are at Flat River Hamlet, northeast of Kavaus. Damn, Kavaus? That's way far off to the northeast. I'd need to cross it and 2 other kingdoms to get back to Drakran. Also, new year already? So I've been a Saintesmancer for what, 7 months? And since we entered the trial? About 3.5? Seems about right, I guess. Can you point me toward the general direction of, wait, what was Kavaus's capital city again? Ho'oaso. The fisherman nodded and pointed toward the direction he had been facing when fishing. It's straight south, there's a road not far off from here, it's a 3-week walk. Thanks. Sofia threw a gold coin to the guy and flew up before he had the chance to say anything else. Sofia flew straight south uninterrupted and reached the capital about 9 hours later. Most of Kavaus was covered in snow around that time of the year, but the capital wasn't. Sofia instantly understood why. Mana's shield. It surely wasn't there to protect from the snow in the first place, she guessed, but that was a nice added benefit. The mana cost must be tremendous. Because the city was. It was without a doubt the largest man-made thing she had ever seen. Built in several concentric circles, it would put both Drakran and Einstein to shame. Wait. The whole city is a ritual circle. Everything from the ramparts and the houses to the streets were neatly aligned to draw precise shapes. It would be nigh impossible to notice from the ground, but from where she was, Sofia found it extremely obvious. I can't decide if this is smart or crazy. But at least I can guess how the shield works now. Well. How do we go about entering? Let's see if the good old vampire card trick works again. As long as someone can identify me as a saint, I'm clear from being taken for a necromancer anyway, even with the wings. Right? No necromancy here. Only saints. Don't mind the wings. I don't want to cut them anymore. Feels too weird missing a part of my body. What she did hide, however, were the 2 parts of the saint equipment set. If someone could overlook the red gem storage ring from afar, no one would miss the obvious gold headband. Wouldn't wearing that be like asking to get robbed? She was surprised to find that there was a high-level entrance door next to the main gate. She entered with Alith in tow. A bespectacled lady was waiting behind a desk. She signaled them to come closer and to close the door. Mage, LV.165. So this is what retirement looks like. A Saintess and a hero. Not registered, I presume, she asked, already searching for something in the filing cabinets behind her. Not waiting for an answer, she turned to face them, presenting 2 sheets of paper and pencils. Fill this in. The high-level card is valid for 6 months and allows for free access to all parts of the city. She looked at the large mirror on the wall behind them. Flying is forbidden inside, except for life-threatening emergencies. Just be civilized and you won't have any troubles. The registration fee is 1 gold each. Name, age, level, class, reason for visit. That's it. Half of this they get from Identify already. Do we need the card? Alith asked. You do if you want to access anywhere interesting. If you lack money for the card in the first place, then it means you will not need it. Sofia, 20, 119, Saintess, training. Alith, 23, 119, hero, relaxation. A few minutes later, they entered the city by the other side of the room, each a purple metallic card in hand. Have a nice stay in Ho'oaso, and please don't forget to close the door. Chapter 90, Rose-Tinted Glasses. After a good night of sleep in a random inn and a luxurious meal to celebrate, the hero and the Saintess parted ways. They had convened on ways to communicate and reunite if need be, and if they hadn't met by then they would at least go to the second trial together. Alith didn't take much of their money, insisting that 500 gold was more than enough. Which left Sofia with a total fortune of 5,954 gold along with some change. And that's only accounting for the coins and the ingots, if I manage to sell some of the castle's antiquities. Or some more blood. With her pockets full of money, Sofia started wandering the city. It felt quite good to be alone again. She understood why Alith wanted some time away too. They had been stuck together with nothing much to do for quite a while. And they were two people that liked their alone time. In a way, it was liberating to be alone again. Well, Sofia was still with Perith but he wasn't the same. Besides, they would still get shared experience for whatever they killed even if they were separated, so it wasn't like they'd lose efficiency. Sofia meandered through the streets, observing the storefronts and buying all kinds of strange local street food. Her bone wings drew some attention but the high-level card she wore around her neck was enough to shut up anyone who might have a problem with it. Besides, she was wearing the fancy green robe she won from the trial. She pretty much never took it off anymore. With that no one would expect she was anything but a noble or a rich adventurer. Sofia had a very long list of things she wanted to do before going back to getting levels. Although the level 120 was so close it was taunting her, it was probably passive keywords next, and she wouldn't use them yet. Her next passive would be at least a triple word one she had decided. Saving spots was too important, especially considering she didn't want to lose any of the passives she had right now. When she felt she had had her fill of the street food and lively ambience, Sofia made a beeline for the gates separating the first and second part of the city. While Zangdar only had an outer and an inner ring, Huoaso had 5 such sections. The outermost and largest one being the commoners, then it was the commercial section. The second ring was already intended for the nobles, or largely anyone with money. The third ring was where most official buildings were, such as the Adventurers Guild, the Vasparian Embassy, the local magic academy. Fourth ring was where the nobles lived, and the fifth was the royal palace. There was nothing of real interest in these last two. Looks like I found my first stop. She'd already asked around for directions, and people were very helpful when they saw the card she wore around her neck. When she asked about a place where she could find space magic experts, a few people pointed her toward the same shop. Evan's Spatial Bubbles. It was a rather inconspicuous shop tucked away in a corner. It was clean but looked quite old. Maybe because it's so old is why people knew about it. Sofia pushed the door. Not paying much attention to the few items and rings encased in glass along the walls, she walked directly to the unattended counter and rang the bell. Without warning, a man looking to be in his late 20s and wearing regular brown overalls appeared behind the counter. Supporter, LV.190. A nice casual reminder that I'm still weaker than some shopkeepers. Really can't let myself be blinded by what meager power I have right now. Sofia could tell he had looked at the wings sticking out from her back. The man had a disgusted expression for a second, then he looked surprised and lost. Didn't think I would identify as a saint, would you? I wonder what actual necromancers show up as. Welcome to my boutique, I'm Evan, what can I do for you? Nice to meet you, I'm Sofia. I came searching for something to protect against forceful teleportation, would you happen to have that? That isn't something most people would care about, but I might still have something from my old days of experimenting, give me a minute, please. He disappeared again and reappeared a minute later holding a rather chunky bright pink bracelet covered in ritual circles inside and out. That would be it, or a Chalcom spatial anchoring bracelet. To explain what it does exactly, it keeps track of your coordinates in space at all times. If there's a sudden shift, it will teleport you back by riding the mana trails in reverse. You need to recharge it with about 1,000 mana every day to keep it running, and every teleportation will need to source the mana directly from you, which can be quite expensive. If you want to turn it off, you need to take it off. You can also mess around with the sensitivity of activation a bit. How expensive is teleporting back exactly? however much the person trying to move you had to pay. Which is pretty much always more expensive depending on the distance. Couldn't I just fuck off far away and be safe then? But somehow summon hero is only 6,000 mana. Can't really rely on distance like this. Do I have other options? Evan pondered over it for a second, scratching his stubble. Nothing I could make for you. Your other options would be a mana disruptor or a mana shield, both very expensive and annoying things to deal with. In my opinion. Identifying the bracelet showed that the man hadn't lied about the product. A bit of a bother to maintain, and kinda ugly. But still way better than dealing with the sand was, and then getting teleported around against my will. Alright. I'll take it then. How much? Let's see. The materials alone would go for about 500, it's a unique item but also not something easy to sell. 800 and it's yours. 7 if you let me see your ring. Sofia frowned. Hey, why the hell do I keep poker face if it's going to do me like this? Why do you want to see it? It is clearly a spatial ring, and identify gives me nothing on it, which is curious. Oh, now that's good news. I see. Well, sorry but I will have to deny, perhaps another time. 800 it is. Do you accept ingots? This is my most prized possession now, no way I'm letting anyone remotely close to it. If only it could fit under the gloves, I would hide it. Sofia left the shop poorer and with a lump of pink metal around her left wrist. The man had demonstrated how to change the sensitivity settings and teleport Sofia around the shop to let her experience the usage of the bracelet. She had set the sensitivity to 1 meter. Any teleporting is too much teleporting. Clearly the man was a better space mage than he was a jeweler. It wasn't the most aesthetic piece of jewelry but to Sofia this was kind of the culmination of her journey until now. Finally, she could leave the worry of being summoned again behind. If only there had been such a proficient space mage in Drakran, she could have afforded it back then. It would have given her a lot of peace of mind. 6,000 gold might not have been that much after all. I just can't be bothered to try bartering. Sofia was still roaming around in the commercial district, undecided on where she wanted to go next. She took a turn through a narrow alley to avoid walking in the crowded main road. She was about halfway through it when 2 people dropped out from a window above, cutting her path. She heard more people dropping from behind. Fighter, LV.99. Fighter, LV.82. Really? These were all random thugs. There was no other way to describe them. The 2 in front of her looked to be around 30-something years old, though she knew by now that this didn't mean much. One had a sword and the other daggers. That's a nice bracelet you got there, the sword wielder started. Is this really happening? And a nice ring, the other continued. Seriously? One of those that were behind also gave his piece. I'll take the rope, and what's under? He laughed. His laughter stopped in a gargle. Next came 2 wet thuds of heavy things hitting the floor. The only other sounds were the muffled clinking of bones. You have murdered Adrian, Butcher leave 53. You have murdered Marie, Illusionist leave 87. The 2 thugs in front of her reeled back in shock. They wanted to run, but the skeleton that had appeared out of nowhere behind the girl disappeared as quietly as it had come. They heard the soft clinking of bones colliding behind them. And with a swipe of a holy light claymore, their heads flew. You have murdered Blaze, Swordsman leave 99. You have murdered Pascal, Thief leave 82. The 4 bodies and their heads disappeared into Sofia's storage ring, while Perith returned to his place in the storage of armor of bones. There was a bit of blood left on the pavement. Whatever. Don't think anyone saw me. I feel like I should feel terrible about killing 4 people. It's the Magisterium moral dilemma all over again. But once more, I don't really. It's just displeasing. Well. Don't care if the system blasts me with its murderer prompts. This was self-defense. I don't have the patience to deal with this any other way. Won't be missed. Good work, Perith. She hadn't expected that her new teleportation technique for Perith would be useful so soon. All she did was change the place he appeared out of the storage to be a bit further. From her testing, the maximum range was about 20 meters if nothing solid blocked the way, and she could pick him up from just as far. I can't believe they would be dumb enough to attack me. Did none of them have identify? Or did they believe they could kill a level 100? Well, I won't say no to 4 free skeletons. She didn't even want to search the bodies. Leaving only a few splashes of blood behind, Sofia resumed her stroll.